Welcome to Certain Point of Views Trade School, where each episode a different host talks about a comic book trade paperback that they loved and why they love it. Hey everyone, I'm Case Aiken, and yeah, I'm back here on Trade School, talking about a comic book that I like, because, well, that's kind of the point of this show. Trade School is a show about discussing comic books that mean something to you. And I want to talk about a series I really loved, and I'm going to talk about one of my favorite volumes from it. And it's going to be a weird one to talk about because there's so many strange parts about this choice. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about Exiles, specifically the series that ran in the early 2000s. There have been many volumes of Exiles over the years. It's a name that Marvel has tried to use for various things. I think I first became aware of it as a property back when it was being used for the Ultraverse stuff that was going on in the early 90s. But I want to talk about the early 2000s series where it was basically sliders but with superheroes, led by Blink from Age of Apocalypse. And I want to talk about specifically volume 7, A Blink in Time. And this is a really weird volume to talk about because it's one of my favorite arcs in the series, but it's also by one of the writers I don't care for that much. It's by Chuck Austen. Chuck Austen is an infamous X-Men writer who didn't do a great job when he was doing the X-Men books at the same time that he was working on Exiles. And there's several arcs in his run on Exiles that I'm not a huge fan of. But god damn, did he hit it out of the park when he left the book. He did a fantastic job just wrapping up this series. Not the series as a whole, but just wrapping up his time on the series in a really fantastic way. And I want to talk about that for a minute here. So Exiles as a book was, like I said, it was sliders, but with superheroes. The idea was we have a team of superheroes, mostly X-Men related characters, but that kind of changed over the time. The roster mixed up a lot. We're going to have a team of superheroes from all different realities, and they are going to travel around different realities dealing with different crises. And it was a fun excuse to bring back Blink from Age of Apocalypse, who was an incredibly popular breakout character from that book, or from that series of books. And to pair her up with a version of Morph who also was from Age of Apocalypse, but this version that we get in the actual book just looks like the one from Age of Apocalypse. It's actually a different character. And to throw in all kinds of crazy concepts for characters into a book, and to take all these like what ifs that Marvel loves to do and to present an ongoing story with them. And Exiles was just a great goddamn book. It started off with Judd Winnick on it, and right from the get-go, we get a loss on the team, and every arc, there's some sort of big shakeup that occurs. That's not to say there's no status quo, but there's some kind of big shakeup. And eventually, the character of Blink, who had been the leader of the team, is allowed to go home. And for a period of time, we were looking at a book that didn't feature our lead. We saw all these other characters running around. Mostly Mimic was the viewpoint character at that point, and we got to see a really cool arc with him. But that is all coming to a head here. In volume 7, we open with a story from Weapon X. Weapon X is the alternate team of Exiles that are made up of more like lethal characters. They're the killers, and they have butted heads with the Exiles in the past, but in theory are on the same team. Like they're on a shared mission with them. It's just they're the Wetworks team. And so Weapon X, we open with them getting a new member. We know that they get new members pretty frequently. Yeah, so they had just replaced Storm, and they replace it with a version of Hyperion. And this Hyperion appears to be the one that we know from the Squadron Supreme. He is, just aesthetically speaking, but it's very quickly revealed that he is not. And we get this very cool story of Hyperion, who is a Superman analog. He is a character who is, he's supposed to be a version of Superman for Marvel. And we get this awesome sequence of him slowly figuring out the circumstances that he's got in terms of being on the Exiles, or rather on Weapon X, and deciding that he can basically take over this whole situation, because this is actually a really bad Hyperion. It's actually the worst Hyperion that we have seen in comics to date. I believe he's called King Hyperion when he shows up. This is a version that took over his world and laid it to waste, and had been ruling a smoldering crater that had been ripped apart by nuclear war before he got brought over to Weapon X. And so he hooks up with a version of Ms. Marvel, Carol Danvers, Ms. Marvel, not Kamala, Kamala Khan. So he hooks up with Carol Danvers. He destroys Vision, and he leads the rest of the team in taking out Magneto of this world that they're on. And there's a really cool sequence where after he just disposes of Wolverine with no problem, Magneto says that he's going to freeze the iron in Hyperion's blood. And Hyperion says that I am not from this world. I'm not from this Earth. I'm not from any Earth, and I have no iron in my blood. And at which point he flies Magneto into space and incinerates him. And it's a really cool scene. And then we cut back to the Exiles, and the Exiles are also dealing with some really bad business. Blink has been returned to the team now, but it's in the wake of Sunfire being killed by Mimic by accident. Mimic had been possessed by the Brood. And Mimic, who is a mutant whose power is that he can replicate other powers, has been functioning as the team Superman up until this point, but he's been getting increasingly dark as the missions have been getting harder and harder for him. He's been forced to confront people that he called friends in his home reality, and in often cases murder his friends. And this has really warped him. And finally, the Brood incident really pushes him too far. So Blink has returned to the team. Mimic, having been cured of the Brood infestation, is now racked with guilt. And the rest of the team is furious at Mimic when they get teleported to this world that the other team, that Weapon X, has taken over. Weapon X has traveled from world to world and finally settled on one that they just are going to squat on. And so they come to this world, and now King Hyperion, along with Carol Danvers and with a version of Spider-Man who is possessed by the Carnage symbiote, have become the dominant power ruling over this world, waiting for something to come dethrone them, to change the circumstances. And we get the Exiles, and they get a mission, which is that only 6 of them can be left alive. And so that's going to go poorly for everyone involved. And it's a really cool arc. They have to take on a Superman and have to deal with him. The way they ultimately get the kill shot is just so damn cool. It's a great moment for a version of Gambit who gets to take a sword and plunge it into an open wound in Hyperion and then explode him from the inside. It's super cool. Blink gets some really nice teleportation effects to use against Hyperion during the fight. Like I said, the actual sequence is incredible. The art by Jim Calafiore is incredible throughout this whole book. He started off a little bit rougher. Like, he wasn't my favorite artist at the early period of Exiles, but by the end of the book, he's easily one of my favorite artists in comics by that point. He has grown so much over the course of the Exiles run, and by volume 7 he's really firing on all cylinders, showing this epic like clash between this like ragtag group of dimensional misfits against, Superman and Captain Marvel. Like, that's not a threat that I would want to take on at any point. And here we go. Here we have this awesome story dealing with betrayals, with rocky relationships between different teams, and just really cool action beats, like those moments that are just exactly what comic book fans are looking for, like cool ways to use superpowers and creative methods. Like, that's what this book is full of, and it's a fantastic entry in the Exile story. Like, I would recommend the entirety of Exiles as a whole, but if you're just going to read one volume, this is a really good one, and you can pick up most of the relationships pretty well. Even though this is sort of the conclusion of Chuck Austin's run on the book, it is a really solid one that really just caught my attention. I think this is the point where I became a regular subscriber to it, like a month-to-month subscriber, as opposed to picking up trades every now and then. And I just can't speak enough about just how amazing this total arc is. It shows what the danger of a scary, powerful Superman who is amoral can be, even in a world dense with superheroes. And it goes so far as to show, a great rivalry between Mimic, who has power for power, a match for Hyperion, but nowhere near the category. His scale of power is so much weaker. We get to see all these other characters doing really creative moves to deal with Hyperion and to deal with Carol Danvers. It's a really fun arc with great action, great suspense. They win. It's a comic book. They win against Hyperion. But it's a really hard fought win. There's a lot of casualties in it. I mean, when I say they get down to 6, they started with 12. So just frame of reference there. So that should tell you how huge the stakes are for this battle. But yeah, it's a great book as a whole. I love the run of Exiles. Pretty much the entire run of this 2000 series. It loses steam at the very end when it goes on its world tour, and when it gets handed off to Chris Claremont, who kind of doesn't know what to do with Exiles. Like he just turns it into another Claremont X-Men book. But yeah, it's a fantastic book that I just couldn't help but recommend, and I would highly say that you should check it out. And then you should check out other stuff that we've got going on at certainpov.com. We've got a great network of shows that are doing all kinds of cool stuff. And so if you like these kind of comic book recommendations, there's tons of comic book podcasts on our network that I want to recommend to you. You can check out Long Live the Legion, or We Have Issues, or Men of Steel, which is my show. We are doing tons of cool comic book material on Certain POV. And if this is the kind of thing that you like, I would highly encourage you to check out the rest of our network, and check out the stuff I'm working on. You can find me on most social media platforms at Case Aiken, except for Instagram, where I'm holding on for dear life to my AIM screen name from high school, which was Quetzalcoatl 5, Quetzalcoatl 5. But aside from that, I'm so thankful that you're here. I'm so thankful the series is going. We're 15 episodes in now, and it's just incredible that we are getting these submissions and getting so much output from people talking about books that they really have passion for. And so on that note, I really hope you enjoyed this ramble about a very cool comic. I hope you check it out, and I hope you have a great week, and then just happy reading. The world is getting stranger every day, and somehow Transmetropolitan saw nearly all of it coming. From weaponized misinformation to political theater to tech that reshapes our lives faster than we can process, the series' future feels uncomfortably familiar. The Word from Tomorrow is a new read-along podcast digging into that uncanny prescience. Hosted by Case Aiken and Keith Lettinen, each episode welcomes a guest to explore how Warren Ellis and Derek Robertson's dystopian satire mirrors the world we're living in now. Across 10 episodes, we walk through the entire series. Its politics, its media chaos, its dark humor, and the way it continues to hit with startling clarity. Listen at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.